Chapter 16, Eve of Destruction. The morning sun had barely risen over Merry Hollow when Holly and Jack huddled over the icy crystal containing the council's message. They had spent a restless night strategizing, and now, with clearer heads, they were determined to decipher every nuance of the cryptic communication. "Look at this part again," Holly said, pointing to a series of frost patterns. The council mentions a central artifact being crucial to the Guardians' plan. What could that be? Jack's eyes widened as realization dawned. The snow globe. Remember the legend you told me about? The one that said Merry Hollow was created as a sanctuary? Holly nodded, her mind racing. Of course. The enchanted snow globe that's supposed to be the source of Merry Hollow's eternal Christmas magic. But I've never actually seen it. Have you? Jack shook his head. It must be kept hidden, protected. But if the Guardians are planning to use it to amplify their spell, then they'll need to get their hands on it first, Holly finished, a chill running down her spine that had nothing to do with Jack's icy presence. They pored over the message again, cross-referencing it with their notes and the magical evidence board they had created. Slowly, a terrifying picture began to emerge. Holly, Jack said, his voice grave, I think I know when they're planning to make their move. Look at this reference to the night when magic peaks, it has to be talking about Christmas Eve. Holly felt her heart skip a beat. The Christmas Eve ceremony. Of course. It's when the entire town gathers in the square. The magical energy would be at its highest point. And it would provide the perfect cover for the Guardians to steal the snow globe, Jack added. With everyone distracted by the festivities, they could slip in, take the artifact, and no one would be the wiser, Holly finished, her mind whirling with the implications. We need to find out where the snow globe is kept and what kind of protections it has. With a new sense of urgency, Holly and Jack set out to investigate the magical defenses surrounding the mysterious snow globe. They started at the town hall, surreptitiously examining old building plans and historical documents for any clues about hidden chambers or magical vaults. As they searched, Holly couldn't shake a growing sense of unease. Jack, she whispered, doesn't it seem strange that there's so little information about something so important? Even in the most classified documents, there's barely a mention of the snow globe. Jack nodded, his brow furrowed. You're right. It's almost as if someone has been systematically removing any reference to it. But who would have that kind of access and authority? The question hung between them, adding another layer of complexity to their already daunting task. After hours of fruitless searching, Holly had an idea. Jack, what if we approach this from a different angle? Instead of looking for the snow globe itself, what if we try to track the magical energy it must be emitting? Jack's eyes lit up. Brilliant. But how do we do that without alerting the Guardians to our investigation? Holly grinned, a mischievous twinkle in her eye. Leave that to me. I think it's time to do some magical baking. Back in her kitchen, Holly set to work creating what she called surveillance cookies. Using a combination of her baking skills and intricate charm work, she infused each gingerbread man with detection spells designed to pick up on powerful magical signatures. These little guys will wander around town, looking like normal enchanted treats, Holly explained as she put the finishing touches on the cookies. But they'll actually be mapping out magical hotspots. If the snow globe is anywhere in Merry Hollow, these cookies will find it. Jack watched in amazement as Holly worked, once again impressed by her creative approach to magic. Holly, you're a genius. But how do we make sure the cookies get to the right places without arousing suspicion? Holly's smile widened. Simple. We're going to donate them to the Christmas Eve celebration preparations. They'll be distributed all over town, and no one will think twice about seeing gingerbread men walking around during the holidays. As Holly put the finishing touches on her magical creations, Jack couldn't help but marvel at her ingenuity. He said softly, I've seen all kinds of magic in my work with the council, but I've never encountered anything quite like your baking magic. It's special. Holly felt a warmth spread through her cheeks that had nothing to do with the heat of the oven. Thanks, Jack. I guess I've always believed that the best magic comes from the heart. And what's more heartfelt than baking for others? Their plan set in motion, Holly and Jack spent the next few hours strategically placing the surveillance cookies around Mary Hollow. They moved carefully, always aware that they might be watched by members of the Guardians of Yuletide. As evening fell, they retreated to Holly's cottage to monitor the magical feedback. Holly had set up a makeshift command center in her living room, with magical screens showing the location and status of each surveillance cookie. Now we wait, Holly said, settling into an armchair with a mug of her special hot chocolate. The cookies will need time to gather information and detect any unusual magical signatures. Jack nodded, his icy blue eyes scanning the screens intently. Let's hope they find something soon. We're running out of time. As they waited, Holly found her mind wandering to all that had happened since Jack arrived in Mary Hollow. She glanced at him, taking in his profile as he focused on the magical displays. Despite everything, she felt grateful for his presence, for the way he had opened her eyes to the larger magical world beyond Mary Hollow. Jack, she said softly, I've been meaning to ask, after all this is over, what will happen? Will you have to leave? Jack turned to her, his expression a mix of emotions Holly couldn't quite decipher. I don't know, Holly. My mission here was always meant to be temporary. But now. He trailed off, seemingly unsure how to continue. Before Holly could press further, one of the magical screens flashed urgently. They both leaped to attention, all personal matters forgotten in the face of their mission. Look! Holly exclaimed, pointing to a pulsing dot on the map of Mary Hollow. That's coming from the old gingerbread factory on the edge of town. The magical signature is off the charts. Jack leaned in, his eyes narrowing as he examined the readings. It's not the snowglobe, he said after a moment. The energy pattern is different. But it's definitely powerful magic. We should check it out. Quickly gathering their supplies, Holly and Jack set out into the night. The streets of Mary Hollow were quiet, most residents already in bed in anticipation of the big Christmas Eve celebrations the next day. As they approached the abandoned factory, they could see a faint glow emanating from its windows. Carefully, they crept closer, using Jack's ice magic to amplify the sound coming from inside. They could hear muffled voices, and as they listened, their eyes widened in shock. Must move quickly, a voice Holly recognized as belonging to Cornelius Candy Cane, a senior member of the town council, was saying. The snowglobe's power is essential for the ritual. Without it, we cannot hope to extend Mary Hollow's blessing to the rest of the world. But the protections are strong, another voice argued. How can we be sure we'll be able to breach them during the ceremony? Leave that to me, a third voice said, and Holly had to stifle a gasp as she recognized Noelle's voice. I've been working on a counterspell that should disable the wards long enough for us to retrieve the artifact. Holly and Jack listened intently as the Guardians discussed their plans, their hearts racing with each new revelation. The snowglobe was apparently kept in a secret chamber beneath the great Christmas tree in the town square. The magical protections around it were tied to the town's festive spirit. As long as the Christmas Eve ceremony was in full swing, the wards would be at their strongest. But the Guardians had found a way to use this to their advantage. They planned to create a disturbance during the ceremony, momentarily disrupting the town's collective joy. In that brief window, they would strike, disabling the wards and stealing the snow globe. As the meeting concluded and the Guardians began to disperse, Holly and Jack quickly retreated, their minds reeling from what they had overheard. We have to tell someone, Holly said as soon as they were safely away. The town authorities need to know what's going on. But Jack hesitated. Holly, We're missing something, Holly said, frustration evident in her voice. Some piece of the puzzle that would make all of this make sense. Jack stood up, stretching his stiff muscles. You're right. But we're not going to figure it out by exhausting ourselves. We should get some rest. Tomorrow's going to be a long day, and we need to be at our best. Holly nodded reluctantly, knowing he was right but hating the idea of sleeping while the fate of Mary Hollow, and potentially the world, hung in the balance. As they prepared to turn in for the night, Holly caught Jack's hand. Jack, she said softly, whatever happens tomorrow. I'm glad you're here. I couldn't do this without you. Jack's icy blue eyes softened, a warm smile spreading across his face. There's nowhere else I'd rather be, Holly. We're in this together, all the way. With those words of reassurance, they settled in for a few hours of restless sleep. Outside, the eternal Christmas lights of Mary Hollow twinkled peacefully, unaware of the danger that lurked beneath their cheerful glow. In less than 24 hours, the fate of their magical town, and perhaps the entire world, would be decided. As Holly drifted off to sleep, her mind swirled with images of snowglobes and secret societies, of betrayal and hope. Tomorrow would bring the greatest challenge of her life. But with Jack by her side and the true spirit of Christmas in her heart, she knew they stood a fighting chance. The clock on her bedside table ticked steadily, counting down the hours until the Christmas Eve ceremony. Until the moment when Holly and Jack would have to stand against the Guardians of Yuletide and fight for the very soul of Christmas itself. As the first light of dawn began to creep through Holly's window, she awoke with a start, her heart pounding. The weight of their mission pressed down on her, but as she looked over and saw Jack's sleeping form on the couch, she felt a surge of determination. They had come too far to fail now. Quietly, so as not to wake Jack, Holly made her way to the kitchen. She had work to do. The magical fruit cake she had proposed would take time to prepare, and she wanted it to be perfect. As she gathered her ingredients, infusing each one with protective spells and charms, Holly allowed herself a moment of reflection. This time yesterday, her biggest concern had been perfecting her gingerbread recipe for the Christmas Eve celebration. Now, she was preparing to face off against a secret society intent on reshaping the world. Life had a funny way of throwing curveballs, even in a place as seemingly idyllic as Mary Hollow. As the scent of cinnamon and nutmeg filled the air, Holly heard Jack stirring in the living room. He appeared in the kitchen doorway, his hair tousled from sleep but his eyes alert. "Good morning," Holly said, managing a small smile. "I hope you're hungry. We've got a big day ahead of us, and we'll need all the strength we can get." Jack nodded, moving to help her with the baking. As they worked side by side, a comfortable silence fell between them. There was so much left unsaid about their feelings, about what would happen after this was all over, but for now, their focus had to be on the task at hand. The sun rose higher in the sky, and Mary Hollow began to come to life outside. Holly could hear the excited chatter of children, the bustling of last-minute preparations for the evening's ceremony. It all seemed so normal, so festive. How many of her neighbors, she wondered, had any idea of the danger that threatened their way of life? As they put the finishing touches on their magical defenses and ran through their plan one last time, Holly felt a mix of fear and exhilaration. In just a few short hours, they would be facing off against the Guardians of Yuletide, fighting for the very soul of Christmas itself. "Are you ready for this?" Jack asked, his icy blue eyes searching hers. Holly took a deep breath, squaring her shoulders. "As ready as I'll ever be. Let's go save Christmas." The clock was ticking, the stage was set, and the fate of their world hung in the balance.